Welcome to your Saint Valentine's Day video. Now this Saint Valentine's Day occurs on the 14th of February. However, that's not really anything much different. However, the first day of Lent, which is Ash Wednesday, also occurs on the same day as Valentine's Day, Saint Valentine's Day. It's a Catholic holiday. Okay, Valentine's Day is a Catholic holiday. Saint Valentine. These were martyrs. Now, this year it's also very closely associated in a time frame with the partial solar eclipse occurring on February 15, the very next day, and that's an ancient pagan Roman holiday called Lupercalia. All right, so get ready to make some love magic happen on Valentine's Day, which it's going to, again, it's on February 14th of 2018, and it's going to coincide with Ash Wednesday, which is first day of Lent, a time of sacrifice. Saint Valentine, now watch this, contains the word, quote, Lent, unquote, because of an obligatory sacrificial aspect involved in the ancient Roman pagan festival. Again, that's Lupercalia, which happened on or around February 14th. So Valentine, Lent. So this is about what? It's about sacrifice and martyrdom. You might ask, just exactly who would want to sacrifice anything when it comes to matters of love, romance, gifting of one's own heart in exchange for another? Sacrifice grants sumptuous sensations of pangs which yearn for one's heart to be bitten into, tasted, and enjoyed by another. Romantic interests peak when each person desires to give away their heart to another. In Tarot, Ace of Hearts is such a happening of falling in love. Remember, tarot cards are simply flashcards for Kabbalah. Okay, so you have the Magician, and these are the major arcana, and then we have the minor arcana, which is the Ace of Cups. So we're going to talk about the Ace of Cups. This is the Rider-Waite deck, and the Ace of Cups is falling in love. Again, falling in love. Now, in the deck, the new Golden Dawn Ritual Tarot, this is by Sandra Tabitha Cicero, created it. This is also the major arcana of the Magician and the minor arcana of the Ace of Cups, which is associated with the Ace of Hearts. Okay, it's a very similar. The suits in the tarot deck are associated, so cups are associated with hearts. Just to get that said. Now, the Two of Cups is when one falls in love, and again, this is the other deck. This is the Cicero deck, and this is the Rider-Waite deck. So and these are actually inner experiences, and these inner experiences really come to life and really are going to be something that you can feel, that you're actually going to experience when you understand that something occurring inside one's self. The right and left pillars, Ida and Pingala, they're called, I believe, in the other cultural nomenclature. I think it's Hindu, that's Ida and Pingala, I believe, or perhaps some form of Sanskrit. However, it's the right and left channels in Kabbalah of Yaakam and Boaz. We're going to get to that in a minute because we're going to talk about some other Hebrew letters like Gimel that's associated with the way towards the higher godhood path. Okay? Now, remember that an arrow from Cupid, son of love goddess Venus and war god Mars, is described in most popular Roman lineage disclosures, shoots each love partner through their hearts, causing a sensation of longing, which is later relieved by the Two of Hearts. Again, that's when you know you're in love, when you're relieved, when you're not having the pain of falling in love. Okay, that's the Two of Hearts. It's when you're actually in love, and that is being in love when you're feeling of almost painful desire. Again, it is relieved, or it's satisfied by receiving what one truly requires. Now, regarding the general rituals for love magic during this Valentine's Day, especially on Saint Valentine's Day, should of course include correspondences from monthly factors of February. This is for any Valentine's Day, and then we'll get into the specifics of this particular Valentine's Day in a moment here, and we're going to get into the added benefit of having this intense sacrificial energy of the first day of Lent or Ash Wednesday being involved. Now remember, February is a Venusian aspect for love from planet Venus, and martial facets for passion from planet Mars. Although magicians should be extra mindful that Venus or Aphrodite has a poisonous nature, and Mars or Aries possesses a war-like quality. We're going to get into some of those aspects a little bit later, those planetary angelic forces. You want to understand what you're dealing with. There's a lot of various kinds of symbols you can use to tap into reprogramming your own software. That's what magic does. It reprograms your software. That's what it does. Okay, now, therefore, what we just want you, because remember, Mars can be intense and Venus is intense in a different way, so therefore only use a pinch of passionate Mars and a watchful dollop of Venus, keeping her influence true rather than fetid. Now, Luna grants us sexuality, and therefore moonlight must be incorporated in and involved in any love spell. Okay? All right, now, for general love magic for Saint Valentine's Day, the Kabbalist's correspondences, like people say, what's the difference between, Christian magic or Christian astrology and any other kind? Well, first of all, it has to do with what planets you're taking as your position of reference, which Christians tend to take from various points of reference. That's where the saints come from. They're various points of Kabbalistic reference. Also, you wouldn't have St. Valentine's Day. You wouldn't have Valentine's Day. It's a Catholic holiday. So that's one of the differences that people have been asking. Now, St. Valentine's Day associations, remember it's February 14th when St. Valentine's Day is celebrated by Christians, evoking, calling upon, invoking, calling into a magical circle, or invoking, calling into oneself, passionate martyrdom. Be very mindful of martyrdom rituals because St. Valentine festivals work, and powerfully so. Valentine's Day, or Saint Valentine's Day, begin on the 14th of the month of February, occurring during the Zodiac sign of Aquarius, with amethyst being its birthstone or gemstone to utilize, while benzoin and myrrh or peppermint is its perfume. Zodiac angel is Cambriel for this time of the year. It is the Aquarian. It's bringing in the natural 11th house attributes of friends and reputation into play. The virtues of Aquarius, the water bearer, is social fairness, while its vice is willfulness. Occurring during Hebrew month of Shevat. Hebrew month of Shevat. Okay. Associated with Aquarius, the water bearer, and 11th house attributes. Now, this is going to, it's a spring rite of sacrifice is what it is. And it associates with Hebrew constellation, the constellation that you have Aquarius, and it's Dalit. Just like February, you have Shevat, but February it's not exactly lined up, but that's the general time. And the constellation, the Latin term is Aquarius, the water bearer, and the Hebrew constellation is Dalit, okay? And is associated in popular culture with the tribe, the tribe of Israel being Reuben, that's the popular association, which is evoked or invoked using Hebrew letter Zadi. That's the Hebrew letter Zadi, assigned to the star card in Kabbalah, okay, the star card. And this is the invocation of that the Kabbalistic pathway, that association. The star is with the Kabbalistic pathway of the star. So they're flashcards. They're just tarot cards are just flashcards to help you remember Kabbalah. That's all. And it also, you can utilize the biblical scriptural invocation being Psalm 119, and that's verses 137 to 144. So we're going to invoke that now. Now, this is associated with, again, this is Psalm 119, this is verses 137 to 144, and 144 is associated with paradise in Hebrew gematria. And what you want to understand is that Zadi, the Hebrew letter, means fish hook. and it is associated with the star card, and this is associated with again, Aquarius, the Li, Shavat, and this holiday. Now, righteousness, we're going to read it now. In the Webster Bible translation, we're going to read it now. Righteous art thou, O Lord, and upright are thy judgments. Thy testimonies that thou hast commanded are righteous and very faithful. My zeal hath consumed me, because my enemies have forgotten thy words. Thy word is very pure, therefore thy servant loveth it. I am small and despised, yet I do not forget thy precepts. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Trouble and anguish have taken hold on me, yet thy commandments are my delights. The righteousness of thy testimonies is everlasting. Give me understanding, and I shall live. This is the invocation that you want to utilize for this type of Aquarian, this February, this Valentine's Day. This is the zodiacal angel Cambriel, the attributes for February. This is for the month. Now, regarding the planets, because we're going to give you a little bit later on which planet is in what constellation. And first we want to associate the planet Venus. Now, the planet Venus, the planetary associations, Venus aligns with love, aligns with romance and treachery. Planetary archangel for Venus is Hanael, with scent being rose oil. White sapphire, clear diamonds, white topaz, quartz crystals, as well as zircons for gemstone correspondence Daleth. It represents, that's the Hebrew letter Daleth, represents associated Hebrew letter, and Psalm 119 verses 25 to 32. The biblical correspondence is the Empress card. The Empress card. Okay. The Empress card. And the reason I'm showing you both is because the Rider-Waite deck is very traditional, and it's a giant deck. And the Cicero deck, the New Golden Dawn Ritual deck, it has a lot of helpful. It doesn't have so many that you're going to get confused if you're trying to memorize, but it has the Hebrew letter, and it has a planetary association. It has a little sign for Venus in the corner, and it has a little sign for the Hebrew letter Daleth, which it means door. Daleth means door. Okay, so what you want to do then is go to Psalm 119 verses 25 to 35. But if you're in a Bible, if you're utilizing a Bible that has the Hebrew letter above the portion of the Psalm 119, you use Psalm 119, and in some Bibles it'll show you the Hebrew letter written above this portion, and you can utilize it. So Daleth works for the planet Venus, the Hebrew letter Daleth. It means door. Okay? My soul cleaveth to the dust. Revive thou me according to thy word. That's Psalm 119. That's verse 25. Now continuing all the way to verse 32. I have declared my ways, and thou hearest me. Teach me thy statutes. Make me to understand the way of thy precepts, so shall I talk of thy wondrous works. My soul melteth for heaviness. My soul, let me say that again. My soul melteth for heaviness. Strengthen thou me according to thy word. Remove from me the way of lying, and grant me thy law graciously. I have chosen the way of truth. Thy judgments have I laid before me. I have adhered to thy testimonies. O Lord, put me not to shame. I will run the way of thy commandments when thou shalt enlarge my heart. So the planet Venus is associated. The reason it talks about to be, relieved of this lying, remove me from the way of lying. The reason you want to use this for the planet Venus is the planet Venus has a poisonous and a deceitful attribute to it. It has but that's the very thing that makes it very sensual and very sexual and very much about romance and love, because without this type of trying too hard to please another, without that aspect, which causes people to exaggerate, then you don't have any romance, so people wouldn't be falling in love. You see what I'm saying? So that's why when you have too much of that, then you're going to end up feeling like you want to get to the truth, but then the romance is going to go away, and you're going to feel like you're going to say, well, I'm not really in love anymore. We're just friends now. And that's the Three of Cups, or the Three of Hearts, and that's because you got rid of the sin. When you get rid of the sin, remember, sin is shin is tooth. So you get rid of all your sins and your shins, you might end up in a situation where you're actually making yourself unhealthy, because God gave us good and evil and the knowledge of good and evil for a reason, and that's what studying Kabbalah is all about. I'm not telling you to sin. I am telling you why God put us in a situation where we have to resist sin. Okay? And if you resist sin, it will make your body and your bones and your teeth and your body strong. But if you run around saying you don't sin, everybody does. So you have to, because just existing, you're sinning. Because you're the will to receive. For the sake of the self, you cannot help it. That's what the body is. So what you have to do is simply resist and follow the law, and that will give you strength in your body and your mind. Now, Mars planetary associations. Mars is going to bring in something very intense. It's going to bring in that lightning bolt that comes from on high, from Zeus. It's going to come on down. So this is we're going to get into that aspect, Mars, because remember, Venus is associated with the female, Mars is associated with the male. Now remember, in Kabbalah, the female current runs through the male body, Mars and Aries, and the male current, the god freedom, runs through the female body, Venus. Now, Mars planetary associations, Mars aligns with passion, it aligns with courage, it aligns with war or violence, so be very careful. Now, planetary angel for Mars is Samael. Now, remember, Samael is often associated with a dragon, and Samael, with the scent being cinnamon or tobacco. Now, tobacco, it's obviously not something that you want to utilize if you're into being healthy, or people, that are underage or whatever. But what you want to do is make sure that you utilize something like cinnamon if you're worried about your health, or if the person is young, you don't want them using tobacco. But if you want a little bit of perfume, tobacco in the background, if it's an adult and it's a controlled situation, that's okay. They also, I think, have tobacco oil and cinnamon oil, which can be utilized as well. But you probably have to be very, very careful with tobacco oil. It's probably very potent. It probably could have a poisonous nature. So just understand that. So be very, very careful when you're utilizing these things. Now, coral or red coral for gemstone correspondence, use your rosary, because the rosaries are already set up. Mars correspondence, again, you want to go ahead and use some kind of coral or red coral. That's what you want to utilize, all right, for gemstone correspondence. Now, Pei, the Hebrew letter Pei means mouth, represents the associated Hebrew letter, and Psalm 119, verses 129 to 136 is the biblical correspondence. Now, the tarot card is the Tower. And you see you have the lightning bolt, and it hits the top of the tower, and you have people, you have the tower on fire, the windows on fire, you got people jumping out of the building. It's associated with Tuesday. It's associated with the planet Mars, and it's got that lightning bolt. So that's a very intense card. Again, violence, war. It's a very, very intense card. So you want to be very careful with the energies. Now, this is not something we're invoking. This is something that's happening anyway, the planet Mars. And we'll tell you which constellation it's going to be in, and that's going to show you what house that's going to affect. But what you want to understand is that if you're using these for passion, you don't want to overdo that, because too much passion, you're going to get into violence, and you're going to get into war and that kind of thing. So you want to, you probably don't need too much of this kind of energy, because that's a very intense energy. Now, understand that the sympathetic nervous system of the body is what you use when you are in fight or flight. It's the stress. Now, when you're in a peaceful mood, that's the parasympathetic nervous system after you eat. That's vagal stimulation. So what you want to do when you're in the sympathetic nervous system, what you want to understand is that is the same thing that goes with sexuality. Because when an animal is going to eat another animal, or an animal is going to have sex with another animal, it's the sympathetic nervous system, and it's very intense, and it's extremely dangerous. So love isn't all, that is not a peaceful kind of situation. That is a violent situation. So what you want to do is understand what you're invoking, and do not invoke it in such a way that you're going to end up invoking something that's going to injure you or somebody else. You have to be very, very careful with using these kind of things. Okay? You can't just willy-nilly. You have to understand what you're doing and use your head while you're doing it. Okay? When you're doing the rituals, when you're using the cards, you're using the gemstones, you're using the incense, the correspondences, you have to understand what you're doing. Now we're going to look at the associated psalm. And the psalms are good to remember. The psalms were written by King David. And the Psalms are going to help you deal with it in a way that is, more godly and more controlled. So bringing in why Christian magic is important, Rosicrucian magic, why it's important to use the Bible is because what you're doing is you're going to have help so that it doesn't get out of control and you don't end up in a bad situation. It's very important. So the Hebrew letter, again, it's pei. It means mouth. We're going to read it for you now. Thy testimonies are wonderful. Therefore, doth my soul keep them. The entrance of thy words giveth light. It giveth understanding to the simple. I opened my mouth and panted, for I longed for thy commandments. Look thou upon me and be merciful to me, as thou usest to do to those that love thy name. As thou used to do to those that love thy name. Order my steps in thy word, and let not any iniquity have domain over me. Deliver me from the oppression of man, so I will keep thy precepts. Make thy face to shine upon thy servant, and teach me thy statutes. Rivers of waters run down my eyes, because they keep not thy law. So this, even notice here that in Psalm 119 verses 129 to 136, that is for the letter pei, and pei means mouth in Hebrew. Notice it mentions mouth in this particular portion of Psalm 119. You see, the psalmists know what they're doing. They're giving you something that is invoking pei, invoking the tower, invoking this, and it tells you, it's showing how to ask God for deliverance and for the ability to be delivered from evil, and to not want to. And verse 133: order my steps in thy word, and let not any iniquity have dominion over me. So this is going to save you to use this Bible verse from your magic becoming anything that might be evil. Because if you'll notice, the Bible's filled with magic from Christ is basically a magician. That's what he does. He does magic. He does Kabbalistic magic from the Zohar, like the woman who touched his garment, who was bleeding. If you read the Zohar, you will find out that actually the rabbis would choose a woman in a certain part of her time, her moon time, her cycle, and to pull something out of them is what actually happened. To pull it out. To bring it out. To bring it out of them. He chose her. She didn't choose him. He knew exactly who she was and exactly what her cycle was doing. He knew exactly. Now, it helped both of them. So when you work with Christ and you work with Creator, when you work with God, it works out for everybody. All right? So these things are a little deeper than what you've been led to believe. Now, the Bible is filled with magic, but it has to be done appropriately. And it's a technology, obviously. Everybody knows, that magic is a technology. But there's a part of it that has to do more with your relationship with another person and a healing of that and a bringing to everybody's happiness, rather than just having dominion and control over other people just for the sake of feeling like you want to control people. It has to lead to everybody's goodness. And this will help you do that. Okay, for the moon, the planetary considered it was considered an ancient planet. The moon or Luna was considered an ancient planet. Associations for Luna or the moon assigned with sexuality, change, interplays of darkness and light. Planetary angel for Luna is Gabriel, the Archangel Gabriel. Okay, with scent being amber, resin. You can use moonstone for the gemstone correspondence. The Hebrew letter is Gimel, and it represents associated Hebrew letter, and the psalm is 119, verse 17 to 24 is the biblical correspondence. The tarot card is the high priestess. Okay, so the high priestess, we have the pillars of Joachim and Boaz. See, she represents the moon. Now, the moon card is the sign of Pisces, so don't use that. Okay? Now, I forgot to show you the Cicero tarot card. I'll show you that. It's here. You see the big Mars sign there in the corner. So it's the Kabbalistic symbols, and has the Hebrew letter Pei. So it's a very good. Now going back again to the high priestess that represents Gimel. Again, Joachim and Boaz, the two pillars, the two channels, Ida and Pingala. And you want to also this is the Cicero deck, the Tabitha, Sandra Tabitha Cicero deck, the new Golden Arbitral Tarot. It has the Hebrew letter Gimel and a crescent moon here. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and look at Psalm 119 verses 17 to 24. So the letter Gimel is up towards the top. It's the third Hebrew letter, and it means camel, and it's the pathway to get to the higher self, to get to Keter, and then there's three veils of negative existence above Keter. Now, we're going to read again 119 verses 17 to 24. Deal bountifully with thy servant, that I may live and keep thy word. Open thou my eyes, that I may behold wondrous things out of thy law. I am a stranger in the earth, hide not thy commandments from me. My soul breaketh for the longing that it hath to thy judgments at all times. Thou hast rebuked the proud that are cursed, who do err from thy commandments. Remove from me reproach and contempt, for I have kept thy testimonies. Princes also did sit and speak against me, but thy servant did meditate in thy statutes. Thy testimonies also are my delight and my counselors. So understand, again, this is King David who sinned against God, but even though he sinned against God by sending Bathsheba's husband, I think it was Uriah, to war, so he would, be killed, so he could have Bathsheba, take her as a wife, even though he had plenty of wives. That's sin. Of course, he had trouble with his children and his household, but God knew his heart and forgave him, because David was joyful. David danced in the streets. He danced in front of the people, and he was joyful, and therefore God forgave him, because God really appreciated David's joyful heart and his willingness to dance and show that joy and not be worried about what people think. So that's why God knew David's heart and loved him very much. Okay, now we're going to go to the sun, the planet, the sun. The planetary, again, the sun was also considered an ancient planet. Now, the associations are soul or the sun aligns with success, leadership, magnanimous compassion. Planetary angel for soul is Michael. That is the mighty Archangel Michael, okay, who helps us deal with our own ego, which is the will to receive for the sake of the self rather than for sharing with others. We're each, a shard. In Kabbalah teaches that originally the vessel was broken into many pieces. We are each a shard of that shattering. And in Tikkun Olam we are brought back together and glued back together with love and the understanding of love. To create a vessel, all of us together, that God can shine the light, Creator God can shine the light into, that will heal the world and make the world whole once again. Okay, now Michael is associated, Archangel Michael, again, with the sun, or the Latin, it's soul. Okay, frankincense is the incense. Clove is another incense. You can also use sunstone. You can use sunstone. And citrine, ruby. You use citrine. You can use rubies. And you can also use yellow or orange diamond for gemstone correspondences. Now, Resh, the Hebrew letter Resh, represents, it's the associated Hebrew letter, it represents the sun, and Psalm 119 verses 153 to 160, biblical correspondence. Now, the tarot card, of course, is the sun. Now, Resh, the Hebrew letter Resh, means the front of head. It's the conscious mind. Okay, so we have the sun tarot card, and we have the new Ritual Golden Dawn deck, which has the symbol of the sun, the monad, and also the letter Resh. Okay, so that's why it's good to use that. It's very helpful because of the associations if you're looking to memorize it. Now we're going to look at what King David had to say regarding the Hebrew letter of Resh, which is right before the Hebrew letter Shin or Sin. All right. So Resh, remember, it means the conscious mind, or it means the front of the head. Okay, we're going to read 153 to 160, Resh. Consider my affliction and deliver me, for I do not forget thy law. Plead my cause and deliver me, revive me according to thy word. Salvation is far from the wicked, for they seek not thy statutes. Great are thy tender mercies, O Lord. Revive me according to thy judgments. Many are my persecutors and my enemies, yet I do not decline from thy testimonies. I beheld the transgressors and was grieved, because they kept not thy word. Consider how I love thy precepts. Receive me, O Lord, according to thy loving kindness. Thy word is true from the beginning, and every one of thy righteous judgments endureth forever. Okay, so this is the Hebrew letter Resh, Psalm 119, verses 153 to 160. Now, these rosaries and the bracelets that I'm showing you I purchased in Honolulu from the bookstore Pauline's Books and Media, run by the Daughters of St. Paul. They have great Bibles there. I was quoting out of Webster Bible Translation because that Bible's in public domain. But you can get many wonderful Bibles at the Pauline's bookstore, and many wonderful statues, which I've gotten there. Not the dragon, but I got the other angelic statues there. And also, of course, they don't have tarot cards, but they do have incense, and they have candles, which can all be utilized, and the rosaries with the gemstones, because you get it there and you get a very powerful and a very healing, beautiful energy. Okay, you can also, if you want to increase your ability to become like a Christian psychic, you might want to utilize Santa Lucia, Saint Lucy. Okay, Saint Lucy. Again, I got this at Pauline's Books and Media. It's a wonderful statue for invoking psychic ability. Okay, she has many correspondences, but one of them that maybe people don't realize, because she's holding eyes. That's her. That's the inner eye. It's the eyes to the soul. It's the psychic ability, or the window to the soul. You can call it prophecy, to be able to see into the future. You know, there's different words, but it just means the same thing. Like the gift of prophecy is one of the gifts from the Holy Spirit, so it's not really anything evil about it. People can quip about words, but words are just a different language. You know, we don't want to argue about each other's languages. That's the Tower of Babel, when the language was confused. That's for another presentation. Now we're going to get into the specific astrological transits for February 14, 2018. For the specific one, when it falls on the first day of Lent, Valentine Day, and it falls on Ash Wednesday. Add planetary Archangel Raphael, as well as planetary correspondence provided here to align planet Mercury for Ash Wednesday. It happens on a Wednesday, which is associated with Mercury and associated with Archangel Saint Raphael. Now, Wednesday is also associated with the Egyptian god Thoth, the scribe of the gods. Okay, and I got that from an Egyptian tour that went through Honolulu. And of course, I got the Saint Raphael Archangel statue from the Daughters of St. Paul at their bookstore, Pauline's Books and Media. Okay, I bought that there. So that is for Mercury. That is for that particular planetary attribute. Okay. Now, Mercury, remember, this Ash Wednesday, it's on February 14th, and that's why you want to use that, and Saint Raphael, the Archangel. February 14, 2018, Mercury aligns with communication and messaging, mental acuity, intelligence, and quick wit. The incense star anise may be used for perfume correspondence, while emerald or moss agate are very helpful. You can use emerald or the moss agate, which are very helpful gemstone associations. That's got that at Pauline's as well. Now, the Hebrew letter Beth represents corresponding Hebrew letter, and Psalm 119, verses 9 to 16, may be used as biblical scripture association. The tarot card is the magician. The tarot card is the magician. As above, so below, as below, so above, and it brings from different realms and dimensions. And although what's above and what's below are not exactly identical, because as you go through the four worlds of Yed He Vav He, you have different attributes coming into play. All right, and this is the magician in the Golden Dawn, New Golden Dawn Ritual Tarot deck by the Sister Rose, by Sandra Tabitha Sister Rose, excuse me. And this is the magician shows the planet Mercury in the Hebrew letter Beth. So again, these are flashcards for Hebrew basically, and for the Mazzaroth, and that means Zodiac in Hebrew. Okay, so we're going to look at Psalm 119. We're going to look at verse 9 to 16. So we want to utilize the letter Beth, which is the second letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and it means house. It means house. I'm going to read it now. This is from verse 9 to 16. Wherewith shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed to it, according to thy word. With my whole heart have I sought thee, O let me not wander from thy commandments. Thy word have I hid in my heart, that I might not sin against thee. Blessed art thou, O Lord, teach me thy statutes. With my lips have I declared all the judgments of thy mouth. I have rejoiced in the way of thy testimonies, as much as in all riches. I will meditate on thy precepts and have respect to thy ways. I will delight myself in thy statutes. I will not forget thy word. Again, this is the Hebrew letter Beth, Psalm 119, verses 9 to 16. Okay, now we're going to get into now the tarot decks. I just want to give some credit here before we give you the specific, for this specific day on this specific year, and when it falls on that, we're going to give you like Venuses and Pisces and the Mars and Sagittarius. But before we get, and the Hebrew associations, but before we get to that, we just want to say that the featured tarot decks, we have the Giant Rider-Waite Tarot deck designed by Pamela Coleman Smith under the direction of Arthur Edward Waite, published by U.S. Game Systems Incorporated. Okay, so that's that. The Giant deck. It's good for, use in videos. Now, the other one, again, is the Tarot Deck 2, the New Golden Dawn Ritual Tarot, created by Sandra Tabitha Cicero, published by Llewellyn. It's a must-have deck for anybody getting into the Golden Dawn or any Rosicrucian kind of order. It's a wonderful deck because it really gives you the ability to be able to properly divine and show you how to do the divination, whether or not you should even do a ritual, because if you don't get a good outcome, you shouldn't even do it. But you have to do special rituals before you even do that, and you have to keep it wrapped up a certain way, and all of that. So you have to be very clean in your magic, or don't even bother doing it. Okay, now, what's going to happen during this time is we're going to have the planet Venus is going to be in the sign of Pisces. This is for the whole year, but for this particular one, Venus is going to be in Pisces. Hebrew nomenclature, Noga in Dagim. So Noga for Venus and Dagim for Pisces. Mars is going to be in Sagittarius. So Pisces is the 12th house of spirituality. Sagittarius is the 9th house, and Sagittarius the archer. Mars in Sagittarius, Hebrew nomenclature, Ma'adim in Kashat. Okay? Kashat for Sagittarius, a constellation. Ma'adim is for Mars, and that's the natural ninth house, and that's for life path meaning, the natural ninth house. Now the moon in Aquarius, again, we know we're in Aquarius anyway. Moon in Aquarius, Hebrew nomenclature, Levana for the moon in Dali, which is Aquarius, okay? So this is the natural 11th house, and we had mentioned to you earlier that has to do with willfulness and fairness and that kind of thing. Now the sun in Aquarius, Hebrew nomenclature, Hama in Dali. So the sun, Hama in Dali, that is again the sign of Aquarius. Now, disclaimers in order here. High magic should be used with all mindfulness, since powerful forces of manifestation are unleashed. This is intended exclusively for entertainment purposes, and information found in this document is based on the oral tradition known as Kabbalah, taught to me by Rosicrucian clergy when I was but a young girl, the facts of which I've committed to memory. Thank you for joining us, and please make sure that you get these great tarot decks and get your Bibles and your statues and your rosaries and get ready for this event. And please join us again.